Hello, guys. Before I get started today, let me clearly say that there is a method to my madness. Many will always wonder, why does Fred keep going back to these things that we've talked about? I keep going back to them because the deniers will rather sweep it under the rug, and we can't let it be swept under the rug. And the bigots will continue to pretend it never happened, and we cannot let them rest in their lies. It did happen. The only way we bring it to closure is that we fess up, deal with it head on, resolve it, put our hands together, and make peace so that we don't repeat the same mistakes we made in the past. What happened to Igbos and has continued to happen to Igbos in Nigeria is a disgrace to the nation called Nigeria. It is atrocities, and in a world that works the way it should work, some Nigerians are supposed to face the World Court for war crimes, and it hasn't happened. And many Nigerians, including some who call themselves friends of Igbos, are very aware of these things, but their attitude is, okay, it's been long, why don't we just leave it alone? How can you leave something alone that is an atrocity and you haven't made an effort to solve it and you want it to be left alone? That's not how life works. We, all of us as Nigerians, need to bring these things to the fore, address it, nip it in the bud, and then move on as one people. Or Nigeria needs to let Igbos go, because Igbos don't belong in a country where people are so wicked against them. Fact after fact after fact has come out. The fact we now await is the fact from General YAKUBU GOWON. The question and the fear is, will he take the truth to the grave and continue to lie till he dies? Or is his conscience gonna prick him to tell Nigerians the truth and apologize to both Igbos and the entire nation for leading them into a war that should never have been fought in the first place? Before I get started today, let me give you a little background on why I decided to bring this interview that General YAKUBU GOWON had in the last week. I guess motivated by his conscience to say something after we've now heard from General Babangida about what happened and what led to the war. My detractors will say, why is he always going back to this thing? I keep going back to this thing because Igbos say that Aroro Anabafo or Menala, the atrocities that Nigeria committed against Igbos. Well, Aroro Anabafo or Menala means that when a bad thing goes on for a year or more, it becomes tradition. The atrocities that Nigeria, Nigeria's leaders, and Nigeria's bigots have committed against Igbos for almost 60 years now, if not longer, took 60 years to cultivate. And to many who perpetuate those atrocities, it's become a norm to them and they don't see anything wrong with it. The only way we're going to correct that norm is that we tell this story over and over again to the point where it aggravates the people who are listening to it, but also hopefully it pricks your conscience. If you're a Christian, or if you're a real Muslim, not the bootleg Muslim that just wants to kill and kill and kill, but if you're a real Allah-fearing Muslim, we want to prick your conscience to the point where you become objective in looking at the problems we have in Nigeria. And continuing on that background, before you watch this and as you watch it, just bear in mind that at the end of the Civil War, Nigeria, Gowon promised that there will be reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of Eastern Nigeria. Almost 60 years after the war ended, if not 60 years after the war ended, except for Niger Bridge, which was built in the last 2-3 years, there hasn't been any rehabilitation or reconstruction that is done in Igbo land by the federal government. And in the meantime, the North and the Southwest have astronomically experienced so much infrastructure building that you wonder, are we all Nigerians or are Igbo stepchildren of Nigeria? And while I recognize that every part of Nigeria has contributed to the development of Nigeria, I don't think I'll be remiss if I don't say that Igbos don't take a backseat to a single tribe in Nigeria when it comes to the amount of effort that has been put into Nigeria to make Nigeria what it is today. And I'll end my introduction on this note. Is it not a shame that while Nigeria destroyed Igbo land during the Civil War and by starvation of infrastructure since the war ended, that Nigeria has rehabilitated the northeastern part of Nigeria, a region where the natives of that region destroyed their region. But it became a priority for the federal government to go and reconstruct and rehabilitate a region whose own people chose to destroy. But the region where Nigeria fabricated lies to attack and kill and maim over 3 million Easterners, that region has continued to be neglected 60 years. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Wanko coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Allen TV. And as usual, I like to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, depending on where you are around the world. Now, here is the interview with General YAKUBU GOWON. The interview is by Mayowa Oluwabi of Account of Stewardship. I'd like you to listen attentively and make up your own mind and decide if you're listening to a man who is given an account of how things happened accurately, or if you're listening to a man who is doing everything he can to, in the street language in Chicago, they say to cover his ass. Listen, and I'll conclude at the end.
Welcome to the program, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Now tell us about your growing up in Nigeria.
Well, you know, as a young man, went to school in a village called Wusasa, a church missionary station, place called Wusasa in Zaria. And of course went to school at the mission school, and then to government secondary school, federal government Northern Government Secondary School, now called Barewa. And then took my entrance examination for the military training, and then got my training. Went for my training in Teshi, Ghana, and then from there to the United Kingdom for for further training, and then back to the headquarters. And at that time, when Nigerianizing Nigerianizing the officer of the Nigerian Army, and I was posted, appointed as Adjutant General of the Nigerian Army. Well, that is, you are the principal staff officer, dealing with administration, discipline, and promotion, etc.
Under the colonial.
Yes, and then Ojukwu was, we were promoted the same time with Ojukwu.
Are you serious?
Ojukwu, he as a quartermaster general. And David Ejo led the governor, former governor of the Midwest. He was the GSO1. After that course, I came back, and then within 36 hours of my arrival, yes, a coup took place.
Now, can you give us the events that led to your becoming the head of state at the age of 31?
After the first, that coup, and things were back to order. A lot of problems in the country, riots here and killings here. And Iransi was trying to get all the traditional rulers to have a meeting in Ibadan. The crisis got to the stage whereby Iransi was kidnapped, taken by some young officers, and even though instruction was given that they should he must be kept safe, and moved to safety. That instruction was not obeyed by these young officers, and the next thing that I received report that he was killed, etc. And so for the next 2-3 days there was nobody in charge.
Was a vacuum.
There was vacuum, and so it got to the time when even the civil servants, senior civil servants in Lagos, they want at least somebody to give the command. Unfortunately, the chief of staff, then Brigadier Ogundipe, Brigadier General Ogundipe, was not able to take control, because I think he had organized some soldiers to go and either discipline what was happening in Ikeja. And unfortunately, as a result of that, all other officers refused to take his command. Okay. So I had to go to Ikeja to try and sort out things. And when I went there, yes, true enough, they had to sort of accept my command. They said at that time they're not accepting any instruction from anyone else other than myself at that time.
Folks, how much of a lie can we listen to and just accept it? Did you hear what General YAKUBU GOWON said there? Brigadier Ogundipe at the time was the highest ranking officer in the Nigerian army after Aguiyi Ironsi was assassinated. In the army, orders go from top to bottom. So junior officers are supposed to take instructions from the most senior officer. General or Brigadier Ogundikbe had nothing to do with Aguiyi-Ironsi, so you couldn't say that they suspected he was in cahoot with Igbos and Aguiyi-Ironsi. But the destroyers of Nigeria, the war criminal, General Muritala Mohammed, at the time, probably a major or a colonel, whatever he was, Hassan Katsina, and the man rotten away in Katsina today, Buhari, those three were the brains behind the massacre of Igbos in the north and the killing of Aguiyi-Ironsi. They had instructed the junior officers to take instructions from nobody else but General YAKUBU GOWON. Why was General YAKUBU GOWON in the good books with Muritala Mohammed? What's General YAKUBU GOWON keeping from Nigerians? It's just food for thought. Let's continue to listen to his bullshit.
So, well, I was not honestly keen, and I remembered either saying, well, if any of you junior ones want to do it, I want you can take it, but leave me. I want to sort of take charge of the army to restore the discipline, loyalty of the Nigerian army that I was in charge of as Adjutant General of the Nigerian army. You know, I offered it to even the junior ones. However, on second thought later on, I said, I can now see. But then, if I'm in the diplomatic corps also, they want at least anybody who can be listened to.
Wow.
So that is when it came to me. Now, the young officers said, no, they would not like anybody else other than myself.
Wow.
Other than myself.
That was a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, so I said, well, look, it is not now. So when it got to the stage whereby, yes, if that is the case, you know, if they've said that, you know, I made known to the other senior officers that we were in government together at the time, and of course, you know, they said, well, look, I think the best thing that we should do is to accept something that can ensure that with the military or the army is brought under control, you know, and at least is loyal to whichever leadership that will come. So, you know, that was, I think, at the time that, you know, I was being virtually asked, look, to take, you know, charge, to take control, and I did.
This brings me to another one of my Yoruba Ronu moments. Ogundikbe was the highest ranking Nigerian army officer. The Fulani, in cahoot with Gowon, denied him his right to take charge of the Nigerian army, where he would have emerged as head of state of Nigeria. But who do Yorubas hate? They hate Igbos. Igbos must go. Abiola was denied an election he convincingly won. And who denied him? Fulani people. But who do Yorubas hate? Igbo must go. And I could go on and on and on. Awolowo was jailed by Fulani people who kept Awolowo safe in the Calabar prison and who released Awolowo to Nigeria. Odumegwu Ojukwu, an Igbo person. But who do Yorubas hate? Igbos must go. All I'm saying is, Yoruba Ronu, and think about what problem we have in Nigeria. If Nigeria's problem is Igbos, or if Nigeria's problem is ignorance by people who are looking for their problems elsewhere when their problems continue to haunt them in their backyards. Let's continue listening to YAKUBU GOWON.
But when it became very clear to me that I was going to be the head of state, the fear that really came, on me, honestly, in fact, the fear that you have when you're about taking your school certificate. I don't know whether you remember.
What sustained you when you were in power, when you took over power after the vacuum?
So in the end, what I had to do was that I asked, when it became abundantly clear that I cannot get away from it, I asked everybody to leave the room, and I went down on my knee and prayed to God that at least God knows that it is not my wish, my intention, that this should happen. But right the way through, He has seen me through. So I prayed to God to give me the courage, of David and the wisdom of Solomon, to be able to do the right thing for the country, for the people, and for our nation. And honestly, I must admit, after that prayer, I said, show me the way to do it.
You got your confidence.
My confidence returned. And I know that I cannot do it. I have not been in government. I know, yes, in the army, I know what to do. I can give various instructions. But what I needed now to do was to get the cooperation of other people outside even the army. And of course, since there are no politicians for me to discuss with or work with, at least there is the civil servants.
Okay.
The civil servants, in Nigeria, and of course, a number of them have been my permanent secretary, Ministry of Defense, and of course, some of them we had worked with, at various conferences, meeting, to discuss, the independence celebrations, at that time.
Wow.
And of course, so I had to, depend on them. I said, well, how the government is done. You give advice to the government. So I'll rely on you, to help me be able to, so that if we can work together in the interest, of the country.
You truly are a man of history. Now let's come to the Civil War. You led the Civil War. Can you tell us the lessons you learned after the war, so that the generations that has not encountered war will understand why it is necessary to maintain peace at all costs?
After the war, after the Civil War, I know what various people went through. Now, honestly, war is not something that you wanted to do. I was only forced to do it, but not to fight the people, the old people, the pregnant women, children, etc. No, I think it was, I gave instruction to the soldiers. There is an instruction how they are to behave, to look after, to protect the people, the older people. Only those who take up arms against them. That was the thing. Now, when you hear the story that we killed 1 million or 2 million or 3 million people, no, not from the soldiers shooting people. It meant they had to go shooting the people right the way through. It is the people that became casualties were the people that Ojukwu and the Eastern government told to run away from these vandals, from these wicked people, from Gowon, the killer, etc. And of course, these people are running away, and as the area contracted because of our movement. And of course, I think most of people really died of either hunger, diseases, etc. Not really from the federal troops, shooting and killing people indiscriminately. It is only those who, took up arms, against. And at the end of the war, I said, and I prayed to God that Nigeria should never again go through experience this sort of carnage.
So do you think the Igbos have been rehabilitated, reintegrated, and reconciled to Nigeria properly?
During the Civil War, a lot of or before the Civil War, a lot of the Igbo people had to leave the country. But it is not the federal government that moved them out. It was a call from Ojukwu himself that all Easterners should leave. All Easterners should live in famine, all parts of the country, and because he was thinking or planning for probably secession at the time, and so a lot of people, left, had to leave because of that, of that call. Those that had to leave for fear of, the crashes that was taking place, were very few. Now, I understand that the chief, the Otumba Balogun had, a neighbor, next to him who left, who was staying next to him, Vice President Ekweme, and so he had to look after his house and even rented it for him, etc. And at the end of the Civil War, when I asked that we should adopt our 3 R's: reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. But there is also another R, reintegration. Reintegration, even though that can be included in the rehabilitation. In a program, but reintegration. But how about we call it 3 R's? Now, I understand that what he did in fulfillment of that policy, which Ekweme returned to Lagos, and then his friend Otumba said, "Well, here is your house." He has renovated it. He had rented it to people, so he gave him back his house and all the money, the rent that he had collected. Honestly, that was one of the greatest things that helped, to fulfill our program, our effort to try to, bring the country together again, etc. So he played his part. As a Yoruba man, as from from the West, and as a Nigerian, that are called to do whatever we can in order to ensure that we're able to come back together again as a people and build a better nation. Now, that sort of thing also happened, I can assure you, in all parts of the country, in Kano, in Jos, in Zaria, in Kaduna, and in various parts of the country. A lot of the Igbo people left almost immediately, as soon as the war was over, they went back and they got their property and whatever rent that was given to them. At least that helped, to bring about the reconciliation that is required in order for the country now to become one again and to move forward.
Now, what else do I need to do to help you understand that General YAKUBU Gowon is a bullshitter? A head of state promised people from a region that him and his army spent 2.5 years destroying the region, destroying the people, lying against the people. The people lost everything they had, and in return, he gave them 20 pounds each. Individual Nigerians, in their individual friendships, reconciled with the returning Igbos, and some of them had helped protect the properties of returning Igbos, like the Otumba in Lagos and the Hueme and all that. But the promise that General YAKUBU Gowon made to Nigeria, not to Igbos, is that he's going to rehabilitate the Igbos and reconstruct Eastern Nigeria, and 60 years later, that hasn't been done. And this wimp that led Hassan Katsina and Muritala Mohammed and Buhari, his juniors in the army, manipulate him, is sitting here lying to Nigerians shamelessly. But the bigger shame is that there are Nigerian bigots who would believe that story. And when I try to talk to them, they'll point to this interview to sell me the garbage that General YAKUBU Gowon is selling to Nigerians. I'm going to continue doing these kind of videos to shame all those bigots and General YAKUBU Gowon, and continue to demand from Gowon and Nigeria's bigots that Nigeria needs to do right by Igbos, or let Igbos get the hell out of that damned country called Nigeria.
Your Excellency, of all your legacies, which is the closest to your heart?
I think, that I was able to keep the country together.
Okay.
And then, to ensure, we had the opportunity to really move this country beyond what it is before return to democracy. But we had, a economic plan that would have taken this country beyond. Honestly, we are at the stage of even beginning to industrialize.
Yes.
After the Civil War, the development plan we had, that was for reconstruction, to help.
I wish we had more time. There's still many questions I would have loved to ask you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You're truly a man of history and a man of peace.
What a way to end it. The interviewer told the man who took Nigeria to war based on fabricated lies. She told him that he truly is a man of history and a man of peace. That's the problem we have in Nigeria. Instead of facing the facts and the truth of the atrocities that have kept us divided, we like sweeping all those things under the rug, pretending everything is fine, and lying to ourselves. How can a journalist that has followed Nigeria's history and followed YAKUBU Gowon's trajectory and listen to him tell her these lies conclude by telling him that he's a man of peace. Therein lies Nigeria's problems. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Fred Wankwo coming to you from our studios in Chicago with another edition of Bold Talk on Island TV. And until next time, good night and God bless.
Tonight I think of my home, the home where I was born. I think of my family and the poor farmhouse we had. There in my home, we had no sophistication. We had no timepiece, the cockcrow and the sun, all we had. Rise early at sunup, we'd go to the farms, drive the monkeys away from the maize farms, and the birds away from the rice farms. Come back home at sundown, sometimes a little later.